Hey, folks, will Bitcoin crush gold? Or will gold make a comeback and crush Bitcoin? Right now, both are at 100K or so, right? 1 kilo of gold is about 103K US dollars, and 1 Bitcoin is about 103, 104K as well. This is the final chapter in my debate. For the last 3 videos, I've been making a debate on Bitcoin versus gold. Now, Bitcoin only needs to do another 8x, 7x or so to catch up to the market cap of gold. Then you could say Bitcoin's no longer digital gold. Then you could say it has become gold. It's overtaken gold, right? But the gold bugs out there, a lot of people would say, no, gold is making a comeback and it would be return of the king. I'm going to tell you how Bitcoin came along and beat gold and became so huge and had this massive rise whilst gold just went flat for 14, 15 years. This is a story that nobody tells you. As far as I'm aware of, I'm the only one on the internet or in real life who can tell you how Bitcoin actually succeeded and why it's still succeeding and why the US government wants Bitcoin to succeed, right? I'm going to tell you folks that story today. But before we do that, we're going to look at what Bitcoin is doing in the short term. Just quickly looking at what Bitcoin is doing in the short term here. In my yesterday's video, I said Bitcoin really needs to close above this 103.1K area, right? Or else we're going to have this full bearish engulfing pattern, right? If Bitcoin was to close down here, right, you'd have a full bearish reversal, bearish engulfing pattern, and that would be the first really negative pattern since this bounce up here. So overall, I've been saying that since we're getting near the all-time high again, I expect some games to be played, but the one thing I am not expecting is a big pullback. It can still happen, but on the balance of probabilities, working with probabilities, I'm not expecting boom, something like retest of 92. Like maybe a gentle pullback to below 100K, because or even just the sideways bull flag and then break up, because of 2 things. One, there's actually lots of shorts, because when there's lots of shorts, chances are we get a squeeze up. So if we do get a real pullback, it will probably have to wait till something like 110, 111, 112. Wait for the old high to be taken out, right? Then probably a real pullback comes, because right now we're still getting a lot of shorts. And the other reason is this. I've seen different versions of this chart at many different places, but this is the chart I'm referring to. So we can see that basically this was Bitcoin during the early part of 2024, when it had that big run up to a new all-time high to 74K. And remember how it went into this big sideways dump to 49K, right? This is the funding rate. This is the funding rate. And there was a spike in Bitcoin positive funding rate, means there were a lot of longs. There was a lot of longs, right? People were this was futures led. So then, of course, there was a significant pullback and took ages. And here is another spike in the futures funding rate, but in the positive direction. See how sometimes it goes in the negative direction? So it goes below 0, the red dots are 0, right? And here once again. And but now see how we're actually in a period, right, where this is not caused by futures. This is a spot buying. So this moves up so far can be believed, right? So I do think a new all-time high is coming, and chances are it's going to be something like at least 120K. I don't think we top out at 110, 112K area for a double, triple top. I think if we might get a short pullback there, a small pullback there, but it's going to be another big leg up above 120K. Okay, so before we go on, first let's answer the question of which crypto exchange does Pablo Jimenez use? Well, Pablo uses this exchange that is non-KYC. That means you don't need to show your ID. That means even the exchange can't see who you are. That means so of course Americans can use it. The IRS can't see you. The tax office can't see you. The FBI, CIA, nobody can see you, right? The Bitunix Pablo Jimenez link. Just by depositing, receive up to 200 USDTs, right? Trade and win up to 35,000 US dollars, but for a limited time only. This offer ends on June the 4th. chance to win a Tesla Model 3, Rolex watch, Apple Vision Pro, Sony, all these great prizes, right? So if you're watching this on YouTube, then the link is in the description below. But if you're watching this on some other platform, such as this one, that's totally fine. Just go and click on my profile page, and then there's the Stan link on my profile page, and should be where all my deals are, and it should be the first thing that pops up. Okay, let's get back to the markets. This is Bitunix, first deal. And remember, folks, only on the Pablo Heman link. Okay, so with the Bitcoin in the short term, there might be games being played because we're near this new all-time high area. But overall, it's looking increasingly likely sooner or later we're going to get the next leg up, and it's going to be a big leg up, 120K minimum sort of move. And so now I'll start explaining why Bitcoin made this historical move over gold. Whilst, look, gold hasn't performed much at all. And that's why a lot of people gave up on gold and got so disappointed by gold because, look, it just went sideways from 2011 and to up till about 2024, end of 23, before it started finally making a move. So during all this time, from 2009 onwards, they printed a lot of money, right? That's why Bitcoin was invented. And look, gold only moved from, what is that? That is around 2009, when it was around 1,000, doubled to 2,000, and then didn't offer any protection for 14 years to people who held gold. That's the risk with gold. All this time, inflation was going up, QE was going up, governments were printing money like there was no tomorrow, and yet gold didn't offer much protection. If you were holding gold, you saw Bitcoin take off, like I don't need to show you guys the Bitcoin chart, it literally went up, I don't know, like about 20,000 times, a million times, whatever the number is, went from like 7 digits behind zero, 7 decimal points behind zero, to now like 100 something thousand, and it's looking like it's going to head to the mid 100s, like 140, 150,000. So how come gold didn't work? All this time, gold didn't protect anybody, and yet the people who bought Bitcoin, like even if you just bought it for fun, if you bought it at the start of Bitcoin, like if you just put down $1, $10, $50 on Bitcoin, you're mega rich. Why did this happen? There's actually a very good reason why that happened, and something that we can learn about history, and that explains to us where Bitcoin is going and where gold is eventually going. So I want to show you guys a few charts that people will say, oh, this is conspiracy theory, but it's actually not conspiracy theory because now it's been proven. Not only it's been proven, it actually makes all the sense. Follow the money, right? They always say follow the money. Well, here's the money. This is a WikiLeaks expose of one of those CIA documents. So it was like part of this document, which was, you see, the Director of Intelligence of the United States. And this was from the year 1981. And the reason why it was around the late 1970s, 1981, was because gold went on a massive run from like $35 to $800 something, like 20x run in 10 years, basically rocked the world. Like United States basically just said, we can't have this anymore. So they said, because it basically told everyone that your US dollars went down in value by 23x or 24x in 10 years. Because gold is the ultimate currency, went up 23x in something like 10 years. So we got to stop that. That's what the US government and big Wall Street banks decided we're going to have to put a stop to it. And this relates to Bitcoin, by the way, guys. This is why Bitcoin has had this meteoric rise from like almost zero, next to zero, to like 100,000. And it's looking like it's heading to 150,000, 200,000, right? So it basically was that the future, the government basically said the futures market would be of significant proportion and physical trading would be minuscule by comparison. What that means basically, in 1980, around then, the United States decided to start on CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, a gold futures market that will be so much larger than the gold spot market, so you can dominate the gold spot market. Also expressed was expectation that large volume futures dealing would create a highly volatile market. And that's pretty easy to understand, right? That just means we're going to create a futures market. It's going to be so much bigger than the actual gold spot market. And it's going to be so big that we're going to dump on it all the time, that when it crashes, basically spot gold price would just tank. And everyone would be like, wow, gold is so volatile, gold is so useless, it never goes up, let's just give up on gold. And that is one of the proofs we now have to this so-called conspiracy theory. And this is where it relates to Bitcoin. See, I'll show you guys another chart. This is the price of gold, for example. The red line is the price of gold. The black line is basically the price of gold if you were to buy during the LBMA, that's London Bullion Metals Association. Now, if you were to buy during the time when the London Bullion Association was open for business, that's the gold price. If you just bought during those 4 hours during the day, which is between 4.5 hours, between 10:30 a.m. and 3 p.m., when London was trading, right, gold price would just go down over the last 40 years. It went from 1970 until now. So that's actually, yeah, that's actually when what I'm talking about. Since the 1970s was that big run up in gold price, and then it peaked, and then see how from 1980 onwards, they just kept on. The official organizations like the London Metal Exchange, like the New York Gold Trading, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, they just kept on hammering, smashing gold price down. This is the London one, by the way. And then this blue one is if you bought gold every day outside of the London trading window. The blue line shows the theoretical price for gold if you bought, right, bought gold by the PM fix. PM fix is 3 p.m. London time, and then held it overnight and then sold it the next day again. So essentially, those 19.5 hours that when London isn't open. So we can see the huge difference here. So whenever London, those official bankers come in, right, gold price gets hammered down. But if you avoid those 4 hours and if you just buy gold outside those 4 hours, then this is the chart price of gold. It goes way up. So overall, between the two, gold, this is what gold price has done. So gold price traded much better outside of the London window. The London spot market controlled by LBMA, London Bullion Metals Association, and then the gold futures market controlled by Wall Street, which is New York and Chicago Mercantile Exchange, CME, basically really tried to hammer the price of gold. I'll show you guys New York in a minute. And then on top of that, the buyers, the real buyers, the blue line, who are pushing the price up, are outside of those two time zones. So who exists outside of New York and outside of New York time and London time? One's European time, one's American time. It's Asia. Asia is the blue line. Asia has been buying. And you think, oh yeah, China's buying. No, it's not just China. It's India as well. Like if you know anything about Indian culture, Indian weddings, it's basically, it's all got to be gold jewelry. Like if you know anything about Arabic, Middle Eastern culture, they're hugely into gold as well. So, Middle East is considered geographically part of Asia. That's just a fact. So China, India, and Middle East, but in that order. So I'll quickly let you guys, and this is why I'm telling you guys. This is why Bitcoin has taken off. I'll get to the conclusion of why Bitcoin has taken off. So here is the New York time zone. The blue part of the chart is basically the price of gold would be if gold only traded during the New York open and New York close, then gold would just stay flat and never move. And guess what? That's exactly what the US government wants. They want you to say, look, your US dollar is fine. It has never lost in value. Basically, gold has always stayed constant at this price, around $200-300 per ounce of gold. Whenever that window is open in New York, they just hammer the price of gold. So it should be pretty obvious now that the gains in gold is outside of the US trading time zone and outside of the London trading time zone. it's in the Asian trading time zone, basically because of, well, it's because China, India, and the Middle East. Traditionally, they use gold for a lot of jewelry, and they still believe in gold. They are, and for other reasons, they're pushing up the price of gold. If it was up to New York, if there was no Asian trading, if it was just if gold was just traded between the New York time zone and the London time zone, European time zone, I'm sure you could see just gold just staying at the price level of around $200-300. It would never move. So now I'm going to explain to you why Bitcoin has taken off, and this is the reason nobody can explain this on the internet. Nobody has this explanation except me. So the reason is because U.S. government has focused itself on hammering down this thing that calls itself a store of value, because US dollar is losing value, because the British pound is losing value, because the euro, the Chinese yen, the Japanese yen are all losing value. So most governments don't want to see gold do well, especially US government, because it has the most to lose, because US dollar is a reserve currency, so it hammers the value of gold, the price of gold. Whilst it's focusing on hammering this price of gold, normal people can't get protection when there's inflation. They can't get protection when there's huge amounts of quantitative easing and QE in the world. So you can see that's why gold moved kind of sideways for 14 years. It offered no protection at all. It actually went down, like in that chart I showed you guys, went from $2,000 down to like 1050, down almost like 45% during that, right? And then 2016, then it came back. So it didn't offer protection at all. That's why Bitcoin was invented, and that's why people love Bitcoin, because it still did the job of protecting you against inflation, against money printing during that period. Now, the reason why is because the government was so focused on taking down this store of value called gold, it was not watching some small little fringe crazy new invention called Bitcoin. This thing also calls itself digital gold, or store of value. It was so small, so fringe. Bitcoin is so small, so fringe. The government wasn't watching it. It was just hammering down on Bitcoin, on gold, and that gave Bitcoin the chance to take off. And there was a huge need in the market for something like gold to exist that goes up in value every time when the government prints money and does QE. But yet gold couldn't do that job because Uncle Sam kept on hammering it. So therefore, Bitcoin took off and started fulfilling that role. Now, so I'll give an example that everyone can understand. It's like, do you know how China became big? Part of the reason is because Japan used to be huge. Japan was like, its GDP was something like 70% as big as the United States. So it's because Japan was doing so well, Japan almost caught up to the United States in around 1985, 86. So US was hammering Japan. In 1985, China was dirt poor. China's like some African country, like GDP per capita. So China was dirt poor. So US kept on hammering Japan, made them sign the Plaza Accord. Japan went through 2 collapses in housing, in property bubble, and stock market bubble. They had a lost generation, 20 years, stock prices just went down. So therefore, whilst America was focused on hammering Japan, and then focused on hammering the Taliban and terrorism, then China took his chance and slowly slipped under the radar, and then took off, and now suddenly everyone's like, oh, China's a major, they call it a threat or a major competitor, however you want to call it. That's what essentially happened to Bitcoin and gold. Because gold was seen as this 5,000-year-old adversary to fiat money, to printed money, gold is the thing that took down all empires, Chinese empires, any of the Qing, Yuan, Ming, Song dynasty, any of the Roman empires, the Orthodox Eastern Roman Empire, whatever. It's always been gold that took down those empires. So therefore, the focus of US government has been on hammering gold. So Bitcoin was able to fly under the radar and then take off. But now, going forward, Bitcoin is getting bigger, and why would Bitcoin now Why would Bitcoin eventually go on and overtake gold? Because it can do another 8x if gold keeps on getting hammered, keeps on getting held down, whilst no one's holding down Bitcoin. And in fact, President Trump supposedly supports Bitcoin. Then Bitcoin can take off to another 8x and overtake gold. Now, here's the thing. One thing to watch out for is this. This is basically something that just came out in China over the last couple of days. This is the government of Shanghai. Shanghai is kind of like like New York. It's the largest commercial city in China, and their government just announced 2 rounds of gold and jewelry consumption vouchers started issuing today, May 17th, 2025. Basically, if you're just living in Shanghai, it's kind of like if you're a New Yorker, then you basically get like 10 to 30% discount on your gold purchases. I mean, that's the government of China, number 2 GDP in the world, number 1 GDP PPP in the world, purchasing power parity, that is supporting gold. Because as I explained in my last video, that China basically uses gold now to back its trade with everybody else, with the global south. So, in other words, to use a Lord of the Rings terminology, analogy, there's the king. He finds this ring in the creek that nobody sees and he says, "My precious." He wears that ring and he becomes all powerful. What's that ring? That ring is gold. Because gold was used to back the US dollar. 20 US dollars per ounce, and then $35 per ounce when nobody believed in US dollars. It was just pieces of paper before. Now they believe in it because of gold. That's how initially US dollar gained its power. And then then the US government tried to tell you, forget about gold. This piece of paper is American exceptionalism. America would be great forever, trusting US Treasury bonds and trust in the US dollar. Now China is trying to become the challenger to become a new superpower. So it's basically saying, well, I know you guys don't believe in the RMB, the yuan, this red piece of paper printed with Mao's head on it. I know you guys don't trust it, but we're going to back it with gold, right? So the trade with Saudi Arabia in oil, right, would be backed in gold. The trade with Australia, with Canada, with whoever, the net difference will be back in gold. I explained all this in my video from yesterday. So basically, gold then becomes, and just think about that. If the oil trade starts happening in the RMB, in the yuan, then there's no such thing as a monopoly of US dollars to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. And then the petrodollar system starts breaking down. So you have one superpower that's depressing the price of gold, and another superpower that's determined on promoting the price of gold and making gold the medium, the asset by which it trades with the rest of the world again. And so many central banks have woken up to this trick that the US government has used for the last 40, 50 years, and they're accumulating gold aggressively now as well. So that's why I think gold has a very bright future ahead of it. Once that US suppression of gold, government and big Wall Street bank suppression of gold, once that breaks, it's like a dam breaking, and then it's just going to be a flood. It's just going to take off. So how high can gold go once that wall of suppression breaks? You would think it would go up at least a few X. Some people have said from where it is now, $3,200 to say $8,000, even over $10,000. I think those targets are easily achievable, and given a longer time span, like 5 to 8 years, $10,000 is easily achievable. So, okay. Anyways, so that's. I think I've done over the last 3 videos a very good explanation of Bitcoin versus gold. What are the advantages and disadvantages, and even where Bitcoin came from and why Bitcoin succeeded. So there are still more things I can tell you about Bitcoin versus gold in that debate that nobody else can tell you. If you guys want to know more, let me know in the comments, or let me know in Discord if you want to know more of it, and I can do more of these. Thank you for tuning in. Catch you next episode.